Well, we can now speak to Joel Rubin, who is president of the Washington Strategy Group and a former Assistant Secretary of State. He's joining live from Washington. Thanks for talking to us. That point that Alan, our correspondent, made a little bit earlier, that many people are pointing out that there is a certain resonance, a certain echo, if you like, of this particular time with 2003 and the run-up to the war in Iraq. Is that something that you would agree with?
Well, Martine, echoes definitely, and I served at the State Department during the 2002 to 2003 period in the Bush administration as a career officer, and I recall how clearly the administration at that time was moving and maneuvering our troops towards the region prior to any congressional authorization for that war. And so what we're seeing now, while not at all at that same scale, we're seeing moves in discrete methods and in narrow areas, be it the arms sale now to Saudi Arabia or the movement of about 1,500 troops to the region, you name it, little movements that push us closer to an engagement with Iran, and that's very concerning.
But given the fact that Donald Trump himself has made it his signature in many ways to withdraw U.S. personnel from conflicts around the region, and that there is an election coming up in the not too distant future in the United States. I mean, how do you square that with what appears to be a military build-up?
You're pointing out the dissonance between the rhetoric and the actions. And President Trump, it's true, he has said he does not want to get into military engagements. And we should all credit him for that we should have a policy that looks open-eyed at the issues and doesn't prejudge them. But the problem right now is that his policy towards Iran underlines how his position is more towards the military than the diplomatic solution. And that's the concern, that we may end up in a situation towards Iran where a mistake occurs, where some kind of incident at sea occurs. We've already seen with the vessels from Saudi Arabia and UAE incidents occur, and that could trip us into a conflict that we don't apparently want. So we need to establish a real diplomatic channel and avoid any unnecessary conflict. And President Trump needs to understand that the more that he presses, while it may put pressure on Iran, it also increases the likelihood for potential mistakes.
Indeed. As has already been pointed out, the Commander-in-Chief is rather reluctant and doesn't want to get involved in another conflict. But those around him, of course, the National Security Advisor, perhaps also the Secretary of State, not to mention some others, they are well known for being very enthusiastic about taking a more robust approach towards intervening inside Iran. Who will win on this particular issue?
Yeah, we are watching John Bolton, for example. He, as National Security Advisor, is advising the president, but he has a long track record of writing about bombing Iran. For example, he wrote an op-ed prior to joining the administration that said as much. So there's concern, and we should just look at North Korea as an example, where the president engaged in direct diplomacy with Kim Jong-un to try to fix the dynamic between our two countries, and the negotiations collapsed. And many look at John Bolton's maneuvers there to create a very hard-line position for the U.S. as undermining the negotiations. So that's where the concern is. The president is not a detail-oriented guy. And is he really in firm control of all the details, or is he delegating that to someone who actually has a different view of where we should be going than he does?
Joel Rubin, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us here at Al Jazeera. Thanks.